Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Maddie Lombardi, and I'm going to be interviewing Evie Sylvia.
My name is Maddie Muse, and I'm also going to be interviewing Evie Sylvia.
So, when were you born?
I was born in 1949 in Nantucket Cottage Hospital on Westchester Street.
What brought your family to Nantucket?
My father couldn't get work on the mainland, so he felt he could always work in Nantucket, and he was born and brought up here.
Could you tell us more about how your father came to Nantucket and his job?
Okay, well, my dad was like a jack of all trades, and he grew up here on Nantucket, and he met my mother when they were in Fairhaven. My father's father had the fishing boat named Nobodea. Marshall has done a print of it. When my dad and my mom came over, I have two older sisters. We came on the ferry, but all our belongings and all our everything, our household stuff, came over on the Nobodea, or the fishing boat, because we couldn't afford the freight on the big boat. And my dad, when I was born, he worked for a gentleman named Nate Thurston, and he was a garbage collector. And, I mean, he's done that kind of work. He worked for the town. And he also did carpentry work. He just did anything that he could to survive. And they were here for a while. We lived in a couple of different houses. There was one down on the end of Francis Street. Eventually, they bought a house on Warren Street, and that's where I grew up.
What was your childhood like here?
It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of freedom to move around. We rode our bikes. We went to the beach. We'd have huge beach parties with the rest of our family because my dad's family's from here. And my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, we would all meet at the beach at least twice a week or so. And then when we got a little bit older, we could babysit and get little jobs, which now the kids, I don't think, can work as early as we could.
Where did you go to school, and what was it like for you?
Okay, I went to Cyrus Pierce School when I was in lower grade school. Then we went up to Academy Hill for 6 through 8. And then the Nantucket High School, 9 through 12. And it was fun. We didn't have a lot of extra activities because it was only basketball and football back then, because I'm a little bit older. And but I had a few really close friends, and we went to the dances and all the big important events.
When you were younger, what did you do for fun, like our age?
Your age?
Yeah.
I used to read a lot. I liked to read, and we would walk downtown and check out the boys. And then every Saturday we were able to go to the movies. The Dreamland would have movies, and it cost us 65 cents to go to the movies.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I know, now it's a lot more. And they also had little films like Flash Gordon and all those at the Boys Club down on Francis Street. And we would do, I think that was Friday night.
Would you give us any advice about growing up on Nantucket?
Oh, I don't think there's anything I could really tell you, but you guys have so much more activities than we did. And I think just to do what your heart wants you to do and go put your efforts into like studying and going to college. It wasn't possible for us. We didn't have any money or the scholarships that you folks can have, and you can do almost anything you want.
Is there any advice that you wish you listened to that like someone gave you when you were our age?
Right. No, not really, because it was a very simple, to me, a simple world back then. You know, you got married and you had children, and the only thing my mother used to tell us, and we were teenagers, is buy property. And of course, at 12, 13, 14 years, I didn't need any property. I could have been a millionaire today. That's about it.
What's a motto that you live by?
I think being honest and caring with your coworkers and the people around you, and not so much speaking your mind, but don't let people push you around. And I don't. Hopefully, nobody gets bullied. There's a few episodes like when my kids were going to school, and I try to, instill in them, don't pick on anybody or make anybody feel bad about themselves, especially.
What are your hobbies now, and what do you like to do?
Well, I love to go to the beach with my family. Every Sunday we go up to Diona's, and then I like to crochet. I make baby blankets for my friends who are having children. And I still read. I like paperbacks. And those, I hate to cook.
What job are you currently in?
Currently, I am a waitress at the Downy Flake. I've held that position for about 40 years. I've had 4 bosses. That the Mr. Rainamo Sr., I worked for him, and then I worked for his son, and then he sold the business to Mark and Susan Hogan. And I worked for them for like 17 years, and now I work for Ken and Ron Holdeman, which they're in their 6th year. But I keep going back. I like it. I really enjoy the job.
What's your favorite thing to have at the Downy Flake?
My favorite food is pancakes. They're so light and fluffy, and of course the donuts, but I try not to eat them. And they're scrambled eggs with different things in them, like they have a Portuguese scrambled, which just has linguiça and peppers and stuff. Those 3 things are my favorite.
Are there any jobs you've had before now?
I worked at the A&P when I was 16. I babysat when I was younger. Oh, and I also worked when I was 13. I lied about my age to Mrs. Thurston, and I started waitressing at Sunny Acres, which is, you probably never heard of it, because I was 13 at the time, going on 14, and I waitressed there for 4 or 5 years before I went to the A&P, and I worked in produce, and I was a cashier. And now, for the last almost 40 years, I've been at the Downy Flake, and I also work at Stop and Shop 3 nights a week.
Interesting. What's your favorite job you've had?
A waitress. I think it's fun meeting people and finding out like what they do. And a lot of our customers come back every year, and you start with the parents, and then the parents have children, and then the children have children, and I know them all.
What's one of your struggles, like your biggest struggles that you've had in your life?
My biggest struggle, probably when I was sick. I had cancer when I was 56, and I had a couple of years of chemo and radiation, and the community was a great support. I had people wishing me well and prayers everywhere from one end of the country to the other. And that was hard to go through because you didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah. But I was very fortunate, and I had great doctors and so much support that I'm fine.
How did having cancer change your life?
I think it made me more caring, more... I've always been down to earth, but just when people are having a hard time or something, you try to either talk to them or help them in any way you can.
And your children still live here?
Yep. I have a daughter and a son, and Elliot is a landscaper and Dawn is a hairdresser. And so we usually get together and go out for different occasions and birthdays and stuff like that. They live here, and Elliot has 3 girls, and Dawn has 1. And Elliot's oldest is studying in England right now. She went back after a break, and she's getting her master's in speech therapy. And she only has another few more months, and she'll graduate unless she goes for her PhD, and that'll be, up to her. And Rachel, my second granddaughter, is studying Bridgewater State, and she's looking at early ed or something like that. And then the 2 younger ones are only 7 and 9, so they got a ways to go yet.
So what makes you have such a strong work ethic?
when I was brought up, my father always worked hard, and his family, and they come from Nantucket, and for some reason in Nantucket you have to work a little harder, I think personally, than other parts of the country. And I've always wanted to own my own home, and we have our own property, which was great. And as years go by, you always have to fix it. You have to do things. And besides putting money into the house and fixing the house, there's other things that I want to do. And I figured if I don't work now and do it now, I'm not going to do it when I get older. And my health is good now, and I can basically plan trips and do things with my family.
What's your favorite thing about Nantucket?
My most favorite thing, I think, is having the opportunity to go out and take a walk if you feel like it, no matter what time of day. At night it's not as good, but during the day, and going to see the kids sometimes, and they have little plays and have stuff that they're involved in, and just being able to walk somewhere where if you're on the mainland, you have to get in a car and drive, and there's just too many people over there. Sometimes too many people here in the summer, but we have to have it. It's a long, cold winter without the tourists, and I enjoy most of them. And like I say, if I don't want to go into town, I don't. I just stay around because I live up over here on Hooper Farm, and I can walk to the grocery store if I want to, and I don't have to get in the car and drive. That's like half the battle to me, is I don't have to get into a line of traffic. Like I'll go on a highway to go into a grocery store or something like that. It's in my backyard.
Is there anything that you would change about Nantucket if you could?
I think I would hopefully get more housing for people that work really hard and want to stay here, because I think the rents are atrocious. They're just so high, and I just don't understand why people need to rent their property for so much money. But that's me personally.
Is there anything that we haven't asked you about that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I can't think of anything. We've covered most everything. I think you did it all.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming and talking to us.
Thank you, guys. It's been quite an experience.
When me and Maddie interviewed Evie, we learned that she had cancer herself, and a lot of people helped her, and they did a lot of fundraisers for her. And so now, whenever there's like a fundraiser for somebody else, she always tries to contribute.
When she was moving to Nantucket, she moved all her furniture on her father's fishing boat because it was hard to afford the freight boat.
She told us a lot about funny stories that happened to her, and she works at night at Stop and Shop, and I don't think that she would have to, and I think that she just likes working, and she told us about how she likes meeting new people every time someone comes in and gets stuff from her.